Thank you.
The rise in anti-Semitic attacks here and around the globe have not stopped far-left Democrats from heated anti-Israel rhetoric. I mean, just look at a couple of examples.
It is against United States law to provide weapons to forces that commit war crimes. The children of Gaza are starving to death because Donald Trump will also not stand up to Benjamin Netanyahu.
Right now, we are watching the Israeli government carry out one of the most destructive bombing campaigns in modern history.
In focus now, Ari Fleischer, Fox News contributor and former White House press secretary. You know, after the ceasefire was negotiated, all the hostages released dead and alive from multiple countries. After food poured in, aid poured in to help the people live in Gaza, and still nothing from the far left. I want to go to some breaking news right now. Ari, I'll come right back. What we are watching now has to do with a terror plot that authorities broke up in Los Angeles. Let's watch.
Louisiana, U.S. Attorney Zach Keller, and the U.S. Attorney for the District of Massachusetts, Lee Foley, for providing valuable assistance over the weekend with a very complex and coordinated search warrants that were done. The charges we are announcing today stem from the defendants and their co-conspirators' detailed, coordinated plot to bomb multiple U.S. companies on New Year's Eve. Thankfully, that plot has now been foiled thanks to the hard work of the FBI and the Department of Justice. This investigation was initiated in part due to the September 2025 executive order signed by President Trump to root out left-wing domestic terror organizations in our country, such as Antifa and other radical groups like the Turtle Island Liberation Front. As the president made clear, recent attacks across the country have highlighted the grave threats posed by these far-left domestic terror groups. These threats are sophisticated, organized campaigns of targeted intimidation, radicalization, threats, and violence designed to silence opposing speech, limit political activity, and direct policy outcomes and prevent the proper functioning of a democratic society. In direct response to the president's order, the Attorney General issued a memo to our offices implementing and mobilizing federal law enforcement to prioritize and counter domestic terrorism and political violence investigations. As a result of those directives, we built this case. Both my office and the FBI have invested substantial resources into investigating and charging these organizations. And if anyone does not believe that members of these groups are organized, sophisticated, and extremely violent, let me tell you about the plot in this case. The four defendants are Audrey Carroll, 30 years old. The pictures, I think we have them somewhere. We'll put them up here. Audrey Carroll, 30 years old, Zachary Aaron Page, 32, Dante Gaffield, 24, and Tina Lay, 41, each from the Los Angeles area. Each is charged with conspiracy and possession of an unregistered destructive device in violation of Title 26, United States Code Section 5861D. We intend to file additional charges in the coming weeks as we finish reviewing the evidence. The defendants are all radical anti-government members of the Turtle Island Liberation Front, which, according to their own social media, is an anti-capitalist, anti-government movement that calls for their associates to rise up and fight back against capitalism. One of the leaders of the organization, defendant Audrey Carroll, helped organize an even more radical faction of the group called the Order of the Black Lotus. Each of the defendants charged today was also a member of the Order of the Black Lotus. Carroll described this group to her co-conspirators as everything radical. As detailed in the federal complaint, which we will now make public, in November 2025, defendant Carroll created a detailed bombing plot to use explosive devices to attack 5 or more locations across Southern California on this upcoming New Year's Eve. Carroll and her co-defendant, Zachary Page, led the effort to obtain and build the bombs and to recruit others to join in their plot. Carroll's bomb plot was explicit. It included a step-by-step instructions to build IEDs or improvised explosive devices and listed multiple targets across Orange County and Los Angeles. Carol also made clear her desires. She said, quote, "What we are doing will be considered a terrorist act." Carol and Page also discussed plans for follow-up attacks after their bombings, which included plans to target ICE agents and vehicles with pipe bombs. Carol stated that those plans would, quote, "take some of them out and scare the rest." Throughout early December, the co-conspirators discussed their plans during an in-person meeting in Los Angeles and through an encrypted messaging application. As part of the plan, the 4 defendants plan to build test bombs in the Mojave Desert. You're going to hear more details about the bombs they intended to build and how the operation went down in the desert here shortly from the FBI Assistant Director in charge. In preparation for the plan, the co-conspirators purchased multiple pieces of bomb-making materials and discussed their travel plans to the desert. Last Friday, December 12th, the defendants took a significant step to carry out their plans. They traveled to the remote campsite, which you're going to see some video of, in the desert, and they began unloading their bomb-making materials to assemble and test the bombs. They had everything they needed to make an operational bomb at that location, and they were subsequently arrested by the FBI before they could build a functional explosive device. Shortly after the defendants were taken into custody, the FBI executed multiple search warrants, including at the defendants' Southern California residence and other locations throughout the country. I'll highlight some of the items found during those searches over the weekend. For example, in Carol's residence, law enforcement found multiple posters and materials associated with Turtle Island Liberation Front, including posters stating, quote, "Death to America, long live Turtle Island and Palestine," and, quote, "Death to ICE, Turtle Island Liberation Front." In Page's residence, law enforcement found a copy of the detailed bomb attack plan. This case is another reminder about the dangers that radicalized Antifa-like groups pose to public safety and the rule of law. Through the tireless work of our prosecutors in my office and our law enforcement partners, which you will hear from today, we disrupted this terror plot before buildings were demolished or innocent people were killed. But this is not the end of our work. My office is committed to extinguishing the far-left terror threats that we face, and will continue to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The 4 defendants arrested will make their initial appearance this afternoon at the federal court in downtown Los Angeles. They are each considered innocent until proven guilty. I will now turn it over to the Assistant Director in charge of the FBI LA office, Akil Davis.
All right, so that was U.S. Attorney's Office for Central District of California, Bill Essayli, who was speaking. That was a lot of information. Here's the bottom line. You caught some women's names in all of this, right? And those co-conspirators, those defendants, and what they were doing to mastermind this whole area. They had planned to do some test bombing out in the Mojave Desert. That includes like Joshua Tree and also Death Valley, and it's the lowest point in all of North America. Like when you go to the desert there, you suddenly realize how vast it is. So if you're thinking, why don't they secure it? I don't think that's possible. And you can see the attraction to radicalized or would-be radicalized terrorists because they can't be seen. I want to bring in Ari Fleischer now back with me. So this ties in to what we were talking about, and that's this wave of radical Islam coming on board with jihad, with killing, with scare the rest of them, according to what the U.S. Attorney's Office just said about these co-defendants. You know, even if you can't kill everybody, scare enough people such that they become, too weak to fight back, I would think. Ari.
Harris, it ties into something that's very simple and very threatening to all Americans and people, frankly, around the world. Globalize the Intifada. This was the chant that was said on American campuses. This is a chant that is said by those terrorists who strike in Israel. Globalize the Intifada. And for people too young to know or remember, the Intifada was an armed uprising, mostly in 2001, 2002, where Jews were routinely killed at weddings, at restaurants, at pizza parlors, by gunmen, by bombers, by homicide bombers who strapped bombs to themselves and would go into the public to blow up and take as many lives as they could. That's the Intifada. And just recently, we've seen all these cries, globalize it. And it's being globalized. Remember the killing of 2 Jews in Washington, D.C. earlier this year. Molotov cocktails against Jews, marching to remember those taken hostage in Boulder, Colorado. This is the Intifada gone global, and it's on America's shores. Thank goodness the FBI stopped this one.
All right, the Turtle Island Liberation Front, TILF, and deeper factions underneath it are extremist groups motivated by pro-Palestinian anti-law enforcement and anti-government ideology. Let's broaden this out a bit. Let's include what happened on Bondi Beach, the massacre there in Australia, and let's talk about this from a top-down approach. So we had on a few moments ago Democrat Congressman Ro Khanna calling for a 2-state solution. Ari, one of those states would be like Hamas on the other side of Israel. Like they can't govern and feed their own people now during a ceasefire because that's not their goal.
Given the leadership right now of these Palestinian factions, and I'm not talking about Egypt, I'm not talking about Jordan, nations that have made peace with Israel, and other Arab nations that have made peace with Israel. I'm talking about Hamas. I'm talking about the remnants of Hezbollah. Any call for a 2-state solution is a call for more violence. As Senator Graham pointed out in that clip you showed, who's going to run this state? And if it's anything connected to Mahmoud Abbas, the current head of the Palestinian Authority, if it's anything connected to Hamas, the remnants of Hamas, it will be a violent state. And just, think about what happened in Australia here. And here I want to spend a second on something. What happened in Australia, Americans also need to recognize, was a police failure. Where were the police? For 20 minutes, people were able to fire weapons, one shot after another, and the police stood down. This is a failure because they didn't confront anti-Semitism. The police weren't there. And in America, and I'm going to say this tonight, or right now, I will say this. My family, we will participate in the outdoor Hanukkah lighting of a menorah. The Jewish community in America and our friends and our allies in all religions, we can never back down. We will celebrate our faith, celebrate our religion, and no one will stop us.
Ari Fleischer, wow, God bless you, especially on this holiday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.